All right, looks like we're live. Hello everyone. How are you doing? By the way, if you can hear us, just please say hello in the chat. Just want to make sure that you can hear us. And just say where you're calling in from, where you're listening in from. We usually like to see where everybody's calling in from because we have a very international audience. But I think we can go ahead and get started. I believe we're live. So today's topic is about are we delivering projects or are we delivering value? And so let me set this up. As PMs, we tend to be very busy, um, busy chasing people, busy driving your projects, to the finish line. But oftentimes we don't always take a step back and look at the big picture, like what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. What is that leading up to, right? So that's what we want to dig into, and I'm really excited about today's topic because, like, the guest that we have on the show, Martin, has sort of been through the trenches, so to speak, where was busy delivering a lot of projects, and then he ended up receiving not the kind of feedback that he hoped. And we're going to dig into that story um, very shortly. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Martin. Martin, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mokhtar. Yeah, it's good. It's been good. I'm Martin. I am a product delivery manager. I've been in the project management industry for almost 20 years. 20 years coming July, I think this year. So I'll officially be 20 years this July. I've gone through most of the industries. I started in design engineering. I went to manufacturing after that, and then construction, and now I'm in IT. So it's been good. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, no, really excited to have you on. So, yeah, I was going to ask you to, just briefly introduce yourself. So, if I could ask, so you've been through different industries. How did you get into project management?
So when I started out as a drafter, like I used AutoCAD, develop 3D models for oil and gas. But as I was doing that, all of it were project based. Like I was like part of the execution team. I developed the pipelines. I was doing stress engineering a bit, but I was keen on like what the leads were doing is really managing the timelines themselves. So when I was fortunate enough to be when I moved to
Mhm.
Unilever, the position was for a project engineer. And at that time, I didn't know what a project engineer was. So initially in my career, like I kind of stumbled upon it. I didn't really search. Somebody sought me out. They said, "Hey, you were doing engineering for that company. You want to do engineering for us because we need somebody that with mechanical background to do some project engineering for us." The term project management was not familiar. It was more a thing, and then they partnered me up with a mentor who was previously a Unilever employee that retired at the age of 60, and I was with him for like 5 years, and he just walked me through. And there's no formal project management training. It's just him going through, oh, what you need to do next. Here's how we track projects, how we track costs, how we track schedule. And then I just learned on the fly and but I learned a lot of people management skills with him, right? So which is what project management is. More often than not, it's more people management than really tasks. But with and then that's kind of how I started with my project management career with Unilever.
Nice, nice. So you started out as an engineer, is that correct? You're an
Right.
engineer, then you became a project engineer.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. What's a project engineer, and how does that differ from a project manager?
So project engineer is kind of like so right now, essentially, when I was a project engineer, I still report to a project manager. Right. So I'm like an assistant project manager, but the title is project engineer. So it's essentially you are given tasks that you perform. Maybe I'm managing costs, but the timelines does not sit with me. Project
I
manager is involved with updating stakeholders and getting
gotcha.
reports, doing your decks that you need to do, and then making sure that the timelines are done, dealing with no project engineers, contractors, and other stakeholders that we need input from, either from production, from QA,
Mhm.
from R&D, from quality, right? So PM does all of that. Project engineer is more. I would say you would more likely you're getting quotes, you're getting the scope finalized, you're getting, and then
I see.
you're presenting the quotes to the project manager so that they can make a decision on which to buy, which to
Gotcha.
procure, and then the timing of it. How long would it take? So project engineer's job is to develop that scope and to finalize it. So once it's
Mhm.
finalized and it's approved, then you execute.
I see. So
That's
you're
kind of
kind of
how,
like
kind
you,
of like an assistant to the project manager.
right, right, and you're kind of like an SME on the
Correct.
project to the project. Okay, okay.
Right.
So
Essentially, in Unilever, you kind of brought in, like, if you have an expertise in mechanical engineering, so
right.
you're brought in for any HVAC work or any piping work
Mhm.
or any um, like equipment that we buy that has mechanical components, because you
Right.
have that expertise, so you can vet if somebody's like charging overcharging you,
Right.
or the design that they provide is not good enough. Then you have input. It's not just you ask a question, they answer you feedback. No, it's more like you're kind of challenging the approach that the contractors are giving you, given that you have background on those.
Yeah, makes sense. So I think I also had a similar trajectory as well because I studied electrical engineering and computer science for about 2 years, and then I switched to petroleum engineering. So
Yeah.
when I finished, I had this mix of petroleum engineering and computer science. So I was hired as a petroleum engineer in a software firm, and we're making software for petroleum engineers, right? So I
Nice.
had this engineering background, and then I was put on projects. So I ended up, because of my technical engineering background, I was put on these projects, and I ended up leading the
Nice.
project somehow, and then
Yeah,
that's how
I agree. I think it helps that to be technical at the beginning. I think so. Even
yeah,
for my, when I talk to my kids, you kind of have to have that technical piece for the first few years before you lead the project. It's so
right,
hard to listen to somebody that leads a project without any, or
yeah,
at least somewhat of a grasp of what you're trying to lead, right?
right.
So I think it really helps to have that initial technical background. But I think once you get a hang of project management, it's kind of is similar approach to most of the stuff that we need to do.
Right, right. No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, I'm usually fascinated with how people get into project management, and I think like that story is quite common. All right, so Martin, let's get into the topic of the day. So there was one story that you shared with me before when we were chatting, whereby like you had delivered like about over 100 projects, and you thought that you did a good job, but then the person that you were reporting to thought differently. So can you share, maybe talk about that story, how you delivered the projects, but you ended up not really contributing to what was considered value in that company.
Yeah, actually, still with the same. I'm still with the same company. So it's previously called Northwest.
Hmm.
So right now we're called Vital Infrastructure Properties. But at the time, so my role was I was brought in Northwest. I joined Northwest in 2022. I was brought in to build the PMO from scratch, because right before, initially we were doing projects through SharePoint and emails, and there's no prioritization. It kind of is ad hoc, right? Somebody
Hmm.
sends a request, we do it, and then it's kind of first come first serve kind of thing.
Hmm.
So we built a structure we're in. Now we prioritize, we kind of do that intake. So as the years go, 2023, 2024, we said, oh, okay, we'll ask people up front, like Q4, what you guys are thinking for 2025, right? So we did that, and then when we, sorry, 2020, that's when 2020. So to the year of 2024, um, we we got about 140 requests, 140 projects. So we have a team of about 10 people in IT. And for that year, I think we did 116 out of 135, something like that, 90 something plus percent. So
Hmm.
we were doing a Q1. Typical for me, I would do a Q1 report, and that's with the CEO. And I said, Martin, oh, that's great. You have 116, 119 projects. Then can you show me the list? So I opened my dashboard, like beautiful dashboard or the deck that I had, and he looked at the project names and he went through it. Said Martin, and then he went back and said, "This is between me, CEO, then it was Greg, and Tracy, our COO." And she said, basically, he said, "Out of this, I can see 9 that move the business forward.
Hmm.
The rest is does not, right?" So in my mind, okay, so that wasn't the feedback that I was expecting. Obviously, 116 is like in my mind
Yeah.
is something, but if the head of the company does not see the value of the other projects that we did,
Hmm.
then why are we doing them?
Right.
So that kind of forced us to think, okay. So I asked, so in my, I don't know if I should have asked why then, but at that time I said, okay, how can I fix? How can we fix it moving forward? So
Hmm.
we turned it upside down before, instead of asking the people on the ground on what needs to be done for you, and then we'll prioritize and do them. We switched around. So we kind of had to talk to the leaders and say, what's important to you today? And what projects do we identify to support that vision, and then we cascade down. So
Hmm.
we in for the following year, we intake last time I think we did 80 something, which was almost half of the projects that we typically do, but the projects that we did move the business forward. So the approach was the same, but instead of getting projects from the ranks up, we kind of started at the top and then cascade and determined the projects that to help that vision, and then make sure that we're only doing projects that supports that vision.
I see. I see.
So in that sense, that we know what we're working on supports that vision, and if we achieve it, we achieve whatever business value we commit to achieve. So that mindset kind of gave me a perspective. Okay, we need to do value projects, not just projects for projects, right? To be
Hmm.
busy for the sake of being busy, it's not good, right? So that's kind of where it started, asking better questions like, what does this do? Why do we need to do this today?
Right.
What's the improvement that you're looking at? And then we need to get business sign off, because before we kind of just did whatever the business asked of us. We're not
Hmm.
really escalating this. Did you know that this guy asked for this? It's gonna cost us this much. There's no like interaction, like pre-interaction than before. So now it's like more, when we receive a new request, we kind of have to have it sign off. They kind of have to defend it, and then we do have a full accountability and making sure that it's tied up to corporate strategy, so that we know that we're working on the right things.
Right. Is this a good way to just describe yourself? Before you sort of just went out to the rank and file and just like,
Yeah, so
what
essentially,
limits do you
yeah.
have?
We did just go. So essentially, what we did is say, hey, I sent the email to the leaders and I said, hey, Canada, hey, Europe, hey, ANZ, we're looking for a pipeline for projects next year. And they
Mhm.
send that email to the ranks, and then their ranks submit it,
I
right?
see.
They submit, hey, I need help with this, I need help with that. There's 50 plus lists for Canada, there's a lot for corporate finance, and then there's Europe and ANZ here and there, right?
Mhm.
So, and then off the 100 plus list, we look at, okay, what must be done. Then we apply our prioritization lens. But
Right.
that way, it helps the specific individual or the specific group of people, but
Mhm.
does it really move the rest of the business? Right.
Right.
So instead of like dealing, pockets of people here and there, what we did is, okay, let's say for corporate finance last year or the year before, they needed a optimization of the AP process because we were fully
Mhm.
manual, right? Or we had a ERP in place, but there's a lot of manual touch points that we have to do. We have to open the invoice, we have to send the invoice there, we have so on and so forth, right? So that work was very important for. So there's a lot of delay in terms of payment because we couldn't get the invoice paid in time because the approvals were taking so long, and it gets stuck with vendor sending to person A. Person A has to send it to person B. Person B has to give it to person A, and then when the approvers get it, it's the same question: did you approve this? It's a lot back and forth. So the project that we did last year, although it was like 3 projects, but the duration was longer. But the business value now that that's automated
Mhm.
is is felt across the organization because now vendors upload in the portal and they can see activity that's happening. They can ask questions in that portal, and they get to see the approvers as they approve it, and they know when they're gonna get paid instead of
Right.
doing this back and forth, right? So those
Right.
are the projects that we're typically trying to do now. But so
Right.
that became like the strategy for corporate finance was that, and then Europe wanted another thing. They wanted to do, let's say, BAS, building automation systems in the cloud, so that they can do remote BAS stuff. So since that's the vision, then we determine the how do we get there, right? So
Right.
it's the other way. So instead of asking everyone, like, what do the leaders need? Determine the projects to support that, and then that's what we did. Obviously,
All
you're
right.
still gonna get the must do, like business as usual
Right.
stuff. We're tracking it as projects because people need a placeholder for them to track obviously their work and their tasks. But when
Right.
we're presenting, we're really tracking any business projects, but coming from the top, not
Right.
from.
Yeah. So now you're sort of starting from the company priorities, like what's really going to drive the business, and then now I guess developing initiatives to support that. Is that
Correct. So
what
yeah,
happened?
and even right now, if they're saying, let's say for this year, we want to get into, say, we just did a rebranding, right? So we are now called Vital Infrastructure. So
Mm.
what's next for that, right? So from that, since that's the direction, so the key for us there was, how do we make sure that our apps are working after the rebranding? What are the stuff that we need to do before day one? And then after
Mhm.
day one onwards, what do we need to do? Right. So right now, website our website updates. You're working with contracts, working with designers, and all
Right.
of the stuff, right? And then obviously there were events that were happening as we announced it. So there's events in the office. So the PM, the portfolio can goes longer. One program, but there are multiple projects in a program, kind of thing.
Right. So is the PMO function, are they also involved in coming up with strategy, like
Yes.
because so they're also involved, okay, in coming up with strategy, and then now, like, how do we now execute? So they're involved from very early on all
Yes,
the way.
I think that's the good part, because I think what we had before were kind of execution, where like
Mhm.
comes to us as decisions has already been made.
Right.
Here's how you can help us. Right now, I think we're always on the table when they're thinking of the strategic projects, and they're getting our input from
Mhm.
the start. So it's easy. We can adjust anything technology related early, but at
Right.
the same time, we're on the table to provide strategy that what worked for previous projects, and we have the
Right.
database of that. So it's just really applying the knowledge we learned as we go through these projects.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. I know that this is something that a lot of PM organization or PM functions struggle with. It's like, because usually they find out after the fact, like, okay, they are brought in late and now they have to sort of
Hmm.
correct thing. So,
You
has
inherit,
it
yeah,
been
more of
always
the.
that way for you? How did you get a seat at the table from the very beginning?
Yeah, so I think before, when I started, there was no formal intake, right? There was no there. We're seen as like one department. It's just IT. You need help with this, even if it's a project, it's an IT task. That's it. It's not tracked as a project. So
Right.
when I came in, I wasn't used to that, because when I was with Unilever and when I was with Grant Thornton, I always treated the project as a project from start to end. There's a specific goal we need to achieve,
Hmm.
unique goal or service that from start with and start and end, right? So the definition of a project. So I track those all the time. So when I came in and there was no tracking, there's really a SharePoint list of requests,
Mm.
and then it's one line of what the request was, who it was for, and then every week we'll meet and we'll put a note on one column. That's it. That's the project update. I'm like, why are we doing it this way? And who says which ones we're supposed to be working on? So we revamped the whole thing. I
Hmm.
so in order for this to work, we need to get buy-in. So what my previous boss then um, came up with is we came up with the global steering committee, because we're a global company then.
Mm.
So we had the head of Canada, we have the head of Europe, we had the head of ANZ, and then the head of IT, HR, and then the C suites, right?
Hmm.
CEO. and CEO. And then we basically say we can approve about 70 to 80% of it because most of them are IT related. We can take a call, but like the bigger stuff that that needs investment, that needs
Right.
significant effort, we need them to tell us which ones they want. So that's kind of how it started. So, but again, at the start, when we were asking, they kind of don't know offhand like what the people on the site need until they ask. So what we did is initially what we did is I send a note. We're doing Q1 intake. Give us the list of projects, but they kind of farm that out to their
Right.
managers, to the directors, and then they kind of went down, and then we get it from projects from down going up. So
Mhm.
what that gave us is a lot of small projects that brought small value. That even if we finish a good sized quantity, the value is not significant. So what the challenge was, let's change the mindset. What do you need? Let's say for Canada, what do you need to get 10% more rent next year? Or
Mm.
for corporate finance, how do we get this report from, a global report from 15 days to 5 days?
Mhm.
How do we make sure that we pay vendors on time in full within the time allotted that we set? So those are give us your top three things that is important to you, and then we'll look at how we're going to projectize to get to what you need.
Mm.
And then what does that mean in terms of participation of the business to get there, like testing, data gathering, training, right? So we're going to give that to you, but you need to have commitment. In order to achieve your goal, we're going to projectize it, but I need commitment in terms of timing. Okay, we need to give them training. Here's a new platform for that. And I need the commitment to, okay, we are ready to train, send your people to train, and then we'll validate training so that you can see an efficiency, and then the value is seen up front. And really, since they're vested in it, that's the part of their strategy that they're trying to achieve, they're gonna have buy-in. So people under them would also
Yeah.
commit.
Yeah.
Kind
So
of how we started as a global steering committee, and then when we shifted, what became like pillars. So global ops efficiency, with
mhm.
even corporate finance efficiency, and then AI enablement, and then really the IT side, the IT infrastructure side readiness is kind
Yeah.
of like mandatory, needs to be done anyway. So that's kind of like tracked in a separate bucket. But from the business, it's really right now that's it.
Yeah. No. So was the trust always there? Because like one common struggle is that yes, like these leaders, this key stakeholders, they have their top things that they need to achieve, but they don't always think of project manager, program management as a partner that would help them get there, right?
I don't.
So,
I had to build trust. I had to build credibility that I was able to
all right.
deliver. Right. So I
Okay.
think prior to that interaction with the CEO, consistently we were delivering results. Right. So it may not
Mhm.
be the right value at the time, or at least the right projects that we were doing, but in terms of being, seeing a project from end to end, and also delivering projects that are were being asked, and turning it over in time. And for me, it's also having visibility. So what I did is we have a quarterly meeting with the global steering committee, but we have a monthly meeting with stakeholders. So if you were the sponsor for a specific project, for let's say for the Canada region, I'll give a one monthly meeting for all Canada leaders or Canada sponsors, and we will talk about the projects there. What was, if we have hindrances, and obviously I'm not gonna wait for the updates. So sometimes I'm always the one removing blockers. So for my
Mhm.
team, it's always I can't do this because of that. So that becomes my role, and then I'll talk to the business. How can we get this out of the way so we can finish? So the
Right.
constant exposure of making sure that things are moving forward is always great. And then whenever we close a project, I see it that we kind of close it in with, here's what we did. It took us
Right.
this much. So it's really constantly exposing that you're delivering. So now,
Right.
as you get through that, you kind of get authority in that and trust, and build that trust. And then I think one of the things is, when my when the VP of IT then was let go, I had me and a colleague of mine had to step up for a bit. And I think with that, I think there was a little bit of more trust given to us and ability to be in that room and really provide direction and strategy. So I think that's kind of where it got
Yeah, no,
gotten.
no, sorry. I was just gonna say that a couple of things that I like that you mentioned, because like trust is not just given, right? You have to sort of earn it. So you built it, you're delivering, and then you started to make a name for yourself. Um, yeah. So I really like that. The other thing that I was gonna ask, so how do you determine value, right? Because sometimes like that can be nebulous. Like, okay, how do you determine whether a project is valuable?
So I think right now, so it's always going to be tied up to the goal of the business for this year. Let's say for this year, we're looking at um, efficiency, right? How do we make our business simple again? How do we make so it's all about automation. It's all about how can we make something that takes 15 minutes to 5 seconds, or something that takes about 2 weeks to does 2 days. So those are like the post challenges to us. So think about what process are you doing today? Can we simplify, like things like approving an invoice? Why should we be approving an invoice for over 2 weeks when we can do 2 days, something like that? So I think we always tie it to corporate strategy. So whatever the strategy is, we assume it's safe to assume and safe to acknowledge that that's what will bring the most value. So we make sure that any project request that I receive is tied up to one of the three or four goals for this year. Or is this a corporate efficiency? Is this a global ops efficiency project? How? Tell me why it's going to be more efficient for you, so that when I present it, it's easier to get a buy-in. Right? And more often than not, we ask them before they come to me. They've already vetted it from, the head of, let's say, if it's Canada, if it's Europe, it's NC. That they kind of have an understanding that it's something that they want to take on. So that when we put it in our pipeline, it's easier to prioritize it rather than it's a fresh request. The leaders don't have any visibility. I kind of want them to have a buy-in from the leader before we take it into our pipeline.
Yeah.
So the value is set with the business, and just the goal from my end is to make sure that your whatever project you're raising is tied to that value. As
Yeah.
long as it's tied to that value, then we know if we finish this, it helps that goal, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, the top corporate goals, and then you make sure that, it's tied to that. Do you sometimes run into issues whereby, like, you have the goals, but it's not easy to actually break that down to
No, hundred
the
percent.
project level?
Yeah,
How do you manage that?
I guess there's an art to that, but let's say it's let's say for global efficiency. Well, efficiency is easy because it's doing something faster, more some faster or smarter, or with less errors. But
Right.
things like quality or
Mm,
sustainability, it's kind of hard to measure. It's just kind of
right.
like done or not done kind of thing, right?
Right.
So I think those are the ones that are kind of hard to not justify, but more get a higher priority from the list. But at
Mm,
the end of the day, I think it's really providing clarity on what the goal of the project is, and then really getting buy-in. So if there's a supporter for any project that's being raised and they think it's valuable, we're just looking at it from a point of view of, so right now, if you sort by value, what's
mhm.
the most valuable, then we'll do those first. Or if it's a low-hanging fruit that takes me 4 days to get it, we'll do that. Right? But anything above 2 weeks, because we've transformed fully agile. So every 2 weeks we have a sprint, and we commit to delivering stories that geared towards that. If we can hit it in a sprint, we'll take it. But if it's gonna take me more than 2, 3 sprints, well, we might have to line up with other programs that are in line, so that we
Right.
know that we finish those ones first, because some of them are time sensitive, some
Yeah.
of them are critical for the next project. It's a prerequisite for the next project, so on and so forth.
Right. And Martin, how do you handle projects that are very important, behind the scenes kind of project, maybe like platform work, but they're never they're never the corporate priorities? How do you handle those?
What you mean to say, well, that would fall under IT work. Anything
Okay.
that's, sometimes this was my struggle, our struggle early, is that we're considering IT projects as projects, but I think at the business level, those are things that we must do anyway, right? So there, like let's say we have firewall, we need to update firewalls,
Right. Or
right?
you
So
need to do like a migration update. Like, so it's not really like
yeah, it's
revenue
right.
or anything like, yeah,
So
but it needs to
really
be
for
done.
that, so what I did, but I do have, my our the delivery team is reporting under IT. So what I did is I classified a program, or a way to separate out the standalone IT, which means there's no interaction with the business. It's really just myself, my team, and the sysadmin team just doing the work that's needed to keep the lights on, right? So it's updating firewalls, cybersecurity, all of these are projects, right? There's um, the website, like all of these are projects without having to necessarily have a touch point with the business. So we still keep it in the same platform. I just have an ability to filter them out. So when we're reporting, so that the VP IT would need it, right? The CEO would need those lists because they need to see that we're doing what we necessary to protect our infrastructure, to expand it, making sure that the business continuity is there. There's fail safes for any what do you call it, any attacks and so whatsoever. So
Right.
it needs to be there. But I think from a business reporting perspective, I'm able to carve that piece out so that it doesn't muck up the rest of the business value, because those are the things that we need to do, right?
Right.
But not necessarily like that. It's the boring stuff. It's not like the sexy stuff that, yay, it's AI, it's this big project, or we're building a new facility. It's not like that, right? So, but these are the things that will support that. So right now, I'm able to tag it as a standalone IT. This is that's the thing that we did, and then I keep it in a separate. Oh, it's not. It's the same bucket, but tagged as different. So when I need to filter, I just filter them out.
Yeah, no, 100%. I find that, when I was leading those kind of projects, because you're always competing with attention, resources, and all of that. So you always have to constantly be defending those projects because, it's not like you mentioned, it's not the shiny, stuff. But if you don't do it, like everybody will feel the pain, right? So you always have
100%.
to just be constantly like, defending. So it's interesting
Yeah,
because
and I think if they say, "Oh, we don't have budget for that," and then it's just painting a picture of, okay, if it's a cost of compliance or cost of
right,
repair, right? So it's understanding that, or cost of brand hit. So it's really,
right,
but again, it has to go with planning, because you can't come to the business, hey, I need 150K for firewalls and firewall replacement for the next 3 years for 50 sites out of the blue. That has to be part of a budget building that you have to do, right? But if that's plan of the budget, they don't necessarily need to see that we're replacing 50 firewalls over 50 sites,
yeah,
in the report. That's not important for them, because for them, as long as we're protected, we're good. I don't need to know how. I don't even know when. As long as internet connection, it's safe, everything's secure, we're all good.
yeah.
So it's not necessarily sexy, or at least something to be, hey, we did this. It's not something that to be clapped on, but but something that we have to do anyway. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Amazing. So, if you're enjoying this conversation so far, and you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this from Substack, just go ahead and subscribe. If you are listening to this via Apple or Spotify, go ahead and give us a follow and leave us a 5-star rating. It's free to you, but it helps other PMs also discover the show. All right. Okay. So now going back to the show, Martin. So I want to pivot a bit and talk about. I think there was a time that you were in a company and there was a PMO that was there, but then it was pushed to the side. Could you talk to me through that story? Talk us through that story. Like what happened? What happened when it was pushed to the side? If I'm using the right term, and then what happened afterwards? Like how did things
Yeah, I
play out?
think before, with Unilever, before there was a, how do you call it? Unilever engineering was a thing before, wherein part of Unilever, we had a project director, I guess, PDM, project delivery manager, who's basically he has multiple project managers before, and they deploy them to different facilities. So I'm not really restricted to one site, right? So I could, if I'm done with one project, I could from food factory, I could go to personal care and to home care. Depends on my capacity, if I have capacity to do that. But at some point they said, okay, that's it's too centralized. We need, so they kind of put that away, and they kind of put every project manager into a site.
Mhm.
So when we did that, what's good with the initial approach was there was standard execution on projects. Everyone is an MS project. Everyone is having the same one pager reports. Everyone has the same tracking tool, and everyone has access to see all of the stuff that everyone's working on.
Right.
But when it became to, um, I guess at some point it became complicated, because several factory managers differ in terms of leadership, in terms of the way they want reporting. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of transformations needed from reporting perspective. So I think at some point they decided, oh, we'll just have the project managers dedicated to a site. So I was reassigned to home care. I think my colleagues went to personal care and foods and so on and so on. So now we're like focused on just delivering for home care. So we kind of have a silo. So I
Right.
would be delivering projects the way I felt that we would need it, and obviously guided by the factory manager on what he needs to report on. And then it's not a problem, but it really, what the contrast would be, obviously the other factories would have a different approach in
Mhm.
terms of delivering projects, but they're going to be compared with the same lens. So that's kind of where it becomes tricky. Oh, how come home care can finish on time? How come foods can
Mm.
go on their budget? And here, so we kind of lost like the efficiency of that, having pushed that on the side. But they kind of get the bespoke approach in terms of reporting,
Right.
application, just faster decisions being done, because we don't have to go through, because before PMO is, we're gonna have to get it approval from PDM. PDM has worked with factory. Now we just go straight to factory and they say yes or no because it's their budget now, right?
Mhm.
Because the PDM usually have their budget, and they kind of have our salaries were kind of like projectized, or our cost, it's a cost center, so we kind of have to justify our cost that way as well. So it's kind of a lot of red tape to get through to get to a decision. But at the
Mhm.
same time, like if I'm since I didn't need, since we don't have that kind of what do you call this, I can't see projects from the other side. I can't compare my cost to theirs, and it's a lot of work to get, hey, here's my cost for, let's say, piping work for, for this factory. How much are you guys getting? I can't compare that anymore. It's kind of a lot of work. So now it's kind of, I'm losing efficiencies there. But I think that's the main difference. You kind of have a bespoke approach rather than a standard approach. So I guess it depends on where
Right.
it brings more value for the business.
Right. So, what was the pain point? So, you had a centralized PMO, and then, that you move from that to moving PMs to various functions. So, what was the pain point there that caused that decision?
I think it's more geared towards preference of PMs, right? So there's like, okay, let's say I want Martin for a specific project, and I'm tied up for another, and they're waiting on somebody. So it's kind of hard for, in that sense, like if there's preference, it's
Okay.
not. So but again, at the same time, because there's trust, right? So if I've worked for a project and this person like the work that I did, they're gonna want me for the next project. But obviously in an approach where like that, where it's centralized, you kind of deployed
Mhm.
when you're available next. Okay, Martin's next project is this, it's that. And then if you're not getting the same approach, or you're not getting the same value, it's kind of hard not to get your stakeholders disappointed or wanting for more, right? So
Right.
at some point, if they keep on waiting, they're saying, oh, we're not being prioritized. So there's a lot of like, I'd say politics, but essentially it's
Yeah.
everything. Even there's a lot of managing stakeholders. So I think
Mhm.
at that point they decided, okay, we need a dedicated one per site so that it's faster, faster churn decisions. Now they also increased the SLAs for factory managers so they can approve more projects without having to go through, uh, I guess, leadership, right? So they have a budget in place for, let's say, they usually ask us for a 8 quarter rolling of projects. Like in the next 2 years, what are your projects that you're going to plan for? Then my roles, since I've been in that factory, I can give you a, if you want efficiency, let's say automation here, repairs here, and so on and so forth. I can give a cost, and then we can budget that out, right? So that way it's faster for them. But again, it depends on. So eventually they brought it back for projects more than €1 million.
Okay.
A project's more than €1 million. Now we become dedicated to a project, because before we were kind of doing projects from 50,000. In the Philippines they were doing euro, so 50,000 euro over,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to 500,000. Anything more than 1 million kind of goes to Unilever Engineering Services, which I was part of eventually after. And then, yeah.
Right. Right. So just going back a bit, I can see, so with the model where you have with a decentralized model, I think the advantage there is that the PM has context, so they can just hit the ground running. There's already trust established. They're aware of the key stakeholders, so they can move faster in their own function, so to speak. Would you agree with that or no?
Agree, and that's just context. There's continuity, right? So I think once a project is turned over, I can turn it over to operations, and I'm able to train them, right? And
Right.
I'm able to train them and able to point them, and then I'm able to turn it over to the engineering team for maintenance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so that even in Unilever, when I was doing it, even when we're doing factory acceptance tests, I will bring operators to Italy or to Spain and say, "Come with me. That's because you're the ones operating this machine. Tell me what's wrong with them." And it's funny because Filipinos are short. We're like 5'5", 5'6" average height, and so one of the machines we bought in Italy, obviously in Italy they're like 6 footers. So some of the stuff we can't reach,
I
right?
see.
So just that additional context and having that additional relationship with the people there made it easier to get projects on the go right away, rather
Mhm.
than introduction. Hi, I'm Martin. I'm your new project manager today. Here,
Right.
there. Then you have to rebuild that trust because it's a different set of people. I mean, the leaders knows you, but then the projects, the stakeholders that you have, the project team members that you have, are always new. If you're moving from one side to another, and they don't know
Right.
you, they now challenge you every time.
Of
There's
course.
no
Yeah.
buy-in because they're testing you all the time. But with
Right.
a dedicated approach, now you work with these people every day. You have tasks for them, and they kind of see how you work, and they adjust to you. And once they adjusted, they know what to expect, and it's easier for them to buy in and to
Right.
uh,
Right.
buy in or push back. But at least we know how to handle them, right? So if I have a hard team member that I know is always late or always absent, I get to do a backup plan, or at least a mitigation plan for that. But if I'm in always a new environment with new project team, that storming stage is kind of always there. So there's
Mhm.
no norm. This, unlike with the dedicated one, you're all kind of in the norming phase at the start.
Right. Right. So with this decentralized model, I mean, you have context, you have continuity, you're able to, there's trust, but what you are uh, what you're losing is that centralized standards, and that came with the centralized PMO, right? Like standard way of
Yeah.
reporting, standard way of
And I think that
executing.
the real struggle would be for the leaders, right? So, because essentially, if I'm somebody that is forget the company, Unilever or others, like if I'm a leader of a function, the reporting is going to be the same for everything. Like so, at some point, I have to get right reporting up to a point where it's the right one, and the way to do that is through a PMO, because the PMO would set that standard, and everyone would report to that standard, and it all roll up to what that is. So without having a PMO or a centralized one, there's a lot of transformations happening. There's meetings for a meeting, right? Like
Mm.
we're gonna go for a meeting. to prepare for a meeting, to prepare for another meeting. It's like two meetings to prepare for a third meeting, which is the third meeting is the most important one. So we'll have a pre-meeting to develop a deck. The deck will be with a meeting with the lead to make sure that deck is up to speed, and then that deck is for the head of the factory. Then the head of the factory will bring that deck to leadership of the other factories before they present to like the bigger thing. So a lot of that can be avoided by having a roll up function, which is typically a PMO, I would say, in terms of projects. Obviously, for operations, they would have the separate thing. But for projects, I find that, having a PMO, even if it's not PMO, but a PMO person that would be, his job is to make sure everything's aligned so that it rolls up. And then you kind of provide clarity to business leaders to make faster decisions. I think that's kind of the decentralized role. It's not.
Right.
So I was talking about this in one of the earlier posts today that I had the week, that, if your function is to track tasks, your expensive overhead, you're not supposed to be tracking that task. Although part of the job is that, is really protecting the value that you said you're gonna deliver, right? So and by doing that, if you're not seeing the full picture, if you're not don't have a PMO, how do you know you're delivering the right value? So that's kind of the thing that you're kind of losing with the decentralized one.
Right. So when the PM was decentralized, so the PM was sort of lost, for lack of a better word, they lost control over the PMs and went to the different sites. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Okay.
Correct. But also, also they don't get to choose. They don't get to see the prioritization. The factory would do what they think would be best.
Right.
Like, and then they would make the decisions for themselves, and it would deviate from a decision from another factory because the leader there would be, that's not important for us. This is more important, right? So if the PMO sets the standard that say, hey, let's say for any food contact, it should be 316L, like that, the material. But so 316L material is like 20% more expensive than 316, which is also stainless steel. But if they don't have the PMO to set that standard, it kind of goes away, right? So they kind of make their own decisions, and then at some point it will bite us back 2-3 years down the line when when that other material starts to rust and all that.
Yeah.
So the standard is good because especially for big organizations, I think it's still good to have it because setting a standard is always good. So that source of truth will always be there, and you're kind of geared to, you have a same compass orientation to where you want to go in terms of project management.
Right. So was that impact felt at the leadership level of not having a centralized PMO?
I think so, because I think there's different results. I think it now becomes, the risk is going down to which PM you get, right? And then also without a PMO, if a project manager leaves, there's no somebody to support. Because before, with a PMO, if I leave tomorrow, another project manager will be slotted in my place. So now, without that department, if a project manager leaves a factory or a business unit, that slot is open, project stops.
Right.
Or somebody like an engineering manager, production supervisor would take on a project on top of the current role. So now they're spread thin. So you would have slippage, you would have errors, you would have rework, which costs more money. Right. So, yeah.
No, the reason I'm asking that is because, like the PMO was sort of pushed to the side, and then it was reinstated, like the centralized PMO was reinstated. I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, what was the pain that was really felt that made them go from, okay, let's bring back the centralized model? Like,
I think the centralized model came when they wanted bigger investments. I think it became harder.
I see.
Because I think with smaller investment, like 10,000, 50,000 USD, or just for context, it's easy to approve on a local level. Once you start building a factory, once you start building an extra line, and you're talking about, like, the biggest factory that I built was, I think, 27 million euros over 2 years. Right? So a project that big that has to go build a business case, that's a full-time job on its own.
Right.
So without if I'm to do a factory plus that, I'm gonna left, the small projects will not have capacity. I will not have capacity to do them. So
Right.
what they did is when they sought out building factories, when they secured, volume to expand in the Philippines, then and build two factories, three factories, four factories. They built it back up. They supported now. They got the top project managers there to be part of that team, and then really focus on projects a million euros and up. So for over, I said 5 years, we were constantly building. We built the factory for foods. We built an extra line for home care. We built multiple lines for additional capacities for stuff. So anything more than a million euros first, and then after
Right.
that, when things died down a bit, anything more than 500,000 euros and up will be with us. And it's easy to get there because equipment, manufacturing equipment is super super expensive.
Yeah.
So like a manufacturing line can easily be like a 2.3 million euro expense, just equipment alone, right? Um, so it's that's kind of the value of having a PMO, because now you have more eyes in it. There's more
Right.
control, and then you're driving quality, you're driving R&D, you're driving production. You're having all these people in the same room without having to deal with the daily, day to
Mm.
day PM work on site.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because the investment is larger, so you now need that rigor because the stakes are higher. So you need to make sure that you have that centralized PMO. So that makes complete sense. I know we are. There's some questions that are coming in. We're going to get to the questions later on. By the way, if you have questions, just please put them in the chat. I want to pivot a bit now to AI. I know that you and I know that you use AI, um, and I'm always curious to know how people are using AI, how PMs are using AI, maybe differently or in interesting ways. So, do you have any that you've come across, or are you using AI in maybe new ways that many PMs might not know?
For me, I like I stopped I initially started using AI like everybody is, like ask and then receive, right? How do I do this? Receive. How do I do this? Receive. So I stopped doing that and start thinking systems. So really, I've started going at it from an agentic perspective. So I have an agent that does my minutes for me, because I think more PMs that are listening would have the same struggles. You would go into a 2 hour meeting of a kickoff, and you're scrambling on your notes all the time, like trying to get everything that you can, but you're half listening, half writing your notes. And if you miss something, you ask again. So what's great with AI and with the technology today, I think your standard subscription for Zoom or to Teams would give you transcripts, would give you AI summary. But I go a step further, right? Because the summary can get it wrong. Their names are like, I would still take down notes, but more important stuff. But also, I would drop that transcript. I would drop that my notes into one agent that I built, and it would give me, not just give me the minutes right away. It would ask me questions like clarify stuff, like who's gonna own this. If it's not clear, it's gonna ask me that who's going to own this task, because somebody mentioned that they need to submit blah 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 by end of day, but there was no name. Then I'm
Mm.
able to provide context. So once I provide context, my minutes can be sent literally 10 minutes after the meeting with full actionable items that are key for the next meeting. And then I use that same chat for the whole project, right?
Mm.
Meaning that one line, that because in chat GPT you have one chat, one subject. So the initial chat would be a
I
kickoff
see.
meeting, and then that is already trained on that. And then whatever updates that I have while we have a platform for project, I can provide a snapshot of, okay, here's the task that was finished, provide it in there, give me the, let's say, an agenda for the next meeting based on my snapshot from the project platform and the notes from last time. It's going to give me context on what we should be talking about the next meeting, and then it's the same chat until the project ends,
I
right?
see.
So that's kind of how I use it. And then obviously there's a lot more than that. Like right now we built something where So since I'm managing my team is not just delivering projects, they're also doing operational tickets.
Okay.
So now we built something wherein I can ask our help desk agent, say, how many tickets does Jason have, and based on that, which one are needs to be done first. Because sometimes when you're too close into to ticketing, you don't notice a ticket that comes in. So I'm able to highlight that and give it to them. Hey, I think this one needs priority because it's blocking a payment. They can't access for the last 2 days. So those are the things that we. So I'm always thinking about it in systems now rather than just ask and receive.
Yeah. So this second case, this agent, it has like it's plugged into the your ticketing system, and yeah,
It's
could you maybe?
pointed it's pointed to our database of
Okay.
open tickets, and essentially I can ask insight. So my initial goal for building that with the team was why are we getting tickets? What are the common themes? So I didn't need like specifics, right? So what let's say, oh, we get 50 requests every month for password reset for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, right? So do we either redo a training, then I can ask to if the same agent would build me a training material, like or
Okay.
an SOP. The same agent would build me an SOP, and we can put that in a knowledge base. And or eventually, the goal is to have a chatbot within our intranet and say, "Here's a problem that I have." Then how in other sites you could do a self help to reset
Right.
your password. Step one is this. Step two is this. So they can self help.
Okay.
At the very least, eventually is I'm able to like if we're building a knowledge base, give me that let's say the top 10 tickets that we receive in terms of themes, like are we getting errors in something? It
Right.
would give me a sense of what we need to focus first in terms of root cause analysis. It
Mm-hmm.
would give me an ability to, okay, if we're getting this much errors because of manual, how do we automate this? So we can do root cause analysis and then apply a project so that we remove that problem for everyone.
I
Right. So
see.
it's not because tickets is fine. Tickets are part of the day and you get
Right.
like 50 tickets a day. But I want to go past tickets and see why are we getting them and see the root cause and apply projects that way.
Okay. And if I'm understanding you correctly, so right now the stage at which the agent is at is analyzing like the tickets that you're getting to understand problems, themes, so that you can.
Yeah, so what's good with it. It's a tool for everyone. It's for me. My use case would be I need to see what the team is working on and making sure that they're working on the right thing. So I would in the morning I would say, what is Jason working on today? What is PT working on today? And it would give with me, oh, Jason has 50 tickets. Here's like the stuff that he has. And then I'm always looking for what's urgent. Like somebody's in the business that's not able to do work, like really stopped work. Because some of them are low, they're tickets, but they don't have to be resolved within the next few hours.
Mhm.
But right now, when we're doing tickets, everyone has the ability to say it's urgent, it's not urgent, it's medium, it's local. But every request, if you give that to them, if you give that ability to the end user to say that this is urgent, everything will be urgent.
Right.
So it's hard for my agents to have an ability to decipher which one is really urgent based on that field. So
Right.
what the bot does is to go through the subject and the body and then
Mhm.
give context and then prioritize it for me that way.
I see.
Like this
So
person is not, getting his invoice blocked because
right.
there's no workflow attached to that invoice. So that's a blocker. And that's a 5-minute thing. So I will highlight those at the beginning of the day to make sure that they resolve it so that that's supported. And then I'm looking out also for tickets that are masking as projects masking as tickets.
Mhm.
So there are, some of given that we have a big pipeline, some people would have to wait for projects to be done. So they're trying, not that they're trying deliberately, but they're asking piecemeal on stuff that they want to be done. But when you look at it, it's really a project. So kind of catch that, filter that for the team and said, okay, we'll do a project intake, add it to the pipeline because this one is going to take us more than a week to finish. A
Right.
custom report that you want done is going to take us a week to finish because we have to ask what you need, what transfer information you need, platform, what format do you need it in, so on and so forth. Then we have to build it, we have to test it. right? So
Mhm.
that whole thing is a project in itself. So that's not a ticket. So that's kind of, so by having that help desk agent, we're able to, at least for my use case, to analyze that. But for if you're an agent, it can help you with, okay, give me my tickets today. If it's live now, it can help me with prioritization as well. So I don't have to guess which one we're talking about. And also, it gives me a list to say who requested the most tickets for the month, which
Mhm.
user, and then I could touch base with that user and say maybe there's a training requirement, maybe there's a tool that they need so that they don't have to keep raising tickets. So we're able to address analysis that way better rather than just hitting a ticket, closing it down, and then hitting it again, closing it down.
Right. Right.
So I want them to have a further analysis on just not just closing tickets.
Right. All right. So what I'm hearing, thanks for sharing that. So I'm hearing several use cases. So at first, it's root cause analysis for recurring problems and themes, so that you can, I guess, more strategically approach some of the recurring problems and themes. Like, okay, maybe we need training in this area, or maybe we need to implement some sort of solution so that we don't get this request every time, or automation so that we don't get this request every time. So that was one. The other one is prioritization, because you can't rely on users to put the priorities, otherwise everything will be urgent, right? So
Yeah,
it feeds it, and then it right.
yeah, and then maybe the other use case that I want the team to build, this is just one more. So if you're raising a ticket, more often than not, the first 3 hours is us asking you what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because you tell me you say raise a ticket, hey, this is not working, period. That's it. Just
Right.
like and then I'm gonna book a meeting. Oh, you're on leave today, so it leaves open. Then on leave tomorrow, I'm sick tomorrow. Then it's been 6 days and we haven't
Right.
heard on what's the problem. So one good use case for this would be, hey, I have a problem. We'll give access eventually. We'll give it access to everyone, but essentially have a problem, and then you would interact as with any chatbot, like give me snapshots, and once it's done,
Right.
it has all the information so that when it reaches our desk, we can execute.
Mm,
We don't have
right.
to ask you questions about it
Right.
because it's incomplete. So the goal is to be able to triage it for us and then put the right category on it without having to second guess if it's really urgent or not. So eventually, my vision would have to be, if it's when you receive your ticket and it says urgent, it's actually urgent based on the way we categorize urgent. If it's medium, it's medium. If it's slow, it's slow, right? So
Yeah.
we have set the standard on what's urgent, what's low, what's medium.
Mm,
So we're just gonna train it on that so that it helps us with that. If you see urgent, you open it. It's not urgent, you can manually set it to medium if you want to
mm,
do that. At least the triaging is not based on context of people receiving it. Because right now we have a help desk person. Right now he's looking at um, application and just basically triaging it to the right person. But it would
right.
be good to have for the person that receives it, how do I manage 50 tickets, which ones are urgent, which one are not. So right
Yeah.
now that's everything is mostly urgent. It's kind of hard to get through.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to build that system in so that we kind of avoid it. And then also obviously the training would have to be redone for the business
Yeah.
eventually. Right now
Yeah.
there's a lot of things happening. I've told you this morning, but I think eventually half of the year we're gonna have to reintroduce how to raise a ticket. How to raise a proper ticket, not just hey, it's not working. Period. It's more what's wrong, what platform, what did you do, how do we replicate this error, what's the error message, like all of these things. Yeah. So that's for an AI approach for ticketing, but I have the same for project intakes, right? So for
Mm,
project intakes, it's gonna hey, I need a project. Okay, why they need it? What's the current process? What's wrong with it? What's the pain point? If you get this, what's the benefit? How is it tied to corporate strategies? So it's asking all these questions already until to such a point that it has everything it needs. Then it
yeah.
goes to my plate, and then I'll call you for missing stuff. So that
Right.
now the meeting that we have, and I don't become the bottleneck, of these projects, because now my meeting with you, I already have full context. I just have a few more follow up questions that you didn't provide that I need clarification on, and it's easier to get that list in front of people that approves it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Without me being, I think my struggle in the early years here in Northwest, I would do. 70 calls over December, January. 70 calls with the business, just taking intakes. Not even prioritization, just taking intakes on what it
Yeah,
is,
just
what
trying to get the context. Yeah, the right
yeah, get context. And then the scheduling issues become, an issue because now there's projects that has to go and then so a lot of stuff. So I become the bottle. So to debottleneck that, or I'm currently looking and how do I make it so when it appears in my desk or on my queue, I already have the information I need. And it's just really now resourcing it with the team and then prioritization with leadership.
Yeah. No, amazing. I like that. So, root cause analysis, prioritization. I also like the one that you mentioned where it's like, there are these projects that are masked as tickets,
Tickets.
right? So,
Yeah.
being able to just decipher that and say, okay, it seems like this is a project, maybe let's put this in the project lane and let's get more context there. And then the other thing that you mentioned was reporting. So I guess after the fact, you see, you can do analysis, reporting, who's raising the most tickets, is there a reason? And then the fifth that you mentioned was getting the right context, right? So if a ticket is raised and you don't have complete information, the AI can sort of nudge the user to give the right information so that the human has the complete picture and they can go ahead and resolve the problem, right? So amazing. Thanks for sharing all of these. I think we are at the time now where we can go to questions. I'm just gonna go to the chat.
I've got 10 minutes.
That's fine. Yeah, 10 minutes is more than enough. We'll just pick some questions. First of all, what problem do you want to solve? All right. Hi. Some LinkedIn user said, "Hi, Mukhtar. Really enjoying this session." All right. So unfortunately, I can't see your name for some reason. It says LinkedIn user, but yeah, I would take a look at my LinkedIn connection request. I get a lot, so I'll take a look and hopefully I can respond to your DM. All right. I think communicating with stakeholders is key. All right. That's the person just making a comment. Shagun says regular maintenance IT work is not really a project, in my opinion. Yeah, so I think business as usual work, like KTLO, keeping the lights on work, it might not necessarily be a project, but I think what I was referring to are these IT projects that are necessary, but they are not repeated. Like you want to migrate from one platform to the other, or you need to you need to move from one database to the other. Like these are not things that you do regularly, but they are projects, but they're not necessarily business projects. So I think that's what we meant. Not like, okay, you're just doing regular maintenance at the end of the week. I hope that makes sense. All right. I think it's more comments that I'm seeing. I'm not really seeing. All right. So there's this question from Harold. Why does the PMO have to set the standard for steel?
Yeah,
Shouldn't
that was a bad example, Harold. To be honest, it was more the steel is basically the material is set by R&D, but
Okay.
obviously R&D and quality, and for food that makes sense, but for let's say for others, so that's a bad example. Maybe if the PMO would set like the way we're tracking, let's say our Gantt charts have to be an MS project. So if somebody does not know how to do MS projects, they would do it in Excel. Now it's hard for the project delivery manager to transform that. Imagine a construction line or a construction project in Excel, and when you get it, it does not follow the same format. So you kind of have to figure out where, and it's so the standard becomes more making sure that the the methodology that you use and the reporting, the one pager, because in Unity where they're big on one pagers, the one pagers is standardized all throughout. So at the top of my head, the standardization, it's a steel was the wrong example. But thanks for
Yeah.
catching.
Yeah, for sure. Harold, thanks, Harold. So question from Daniel. As a PMP, I often see strong delivery, but less strategic impact and servant leadership. In your experience, what separates project managers who create lasting value through servant leadership from those focused mainly on execution? Why hasn't strategic project management become the norm yet? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's more geared towards not I you'd find that mature organizations have strong project management skills and they value project managers in a way that they bring them to the table early. So sometimes it's a line wherein how mature are the leaders in terms of project management, because sometimes they were kind of more leaders kind of did it themselves, so now they are struggling to bring somebody in to get that in. So the way I did that is to show that I can consistently deliver. So you might have to start with good execution first, because once you've provided that they can let go, that they can actually let that go and just wait for results, then that's where you become part of the table and do strategic leadership.
Hmm. So if I'm hearing you correctly, at whatever level that you're at right now, just make sure that you deliver there, and then, you would earn trust, and then you would now be invited to rooms
Yeah,
that you're necessarily part of. Okay.
correct. As you deliver, as you provide results, as you become more visible, the next project will be assigned to you, and as you consistently deliver, you become authority on that. And at some point, you'll realize, oh, I'm always on these tables, because they kind of like the way you deliver and the way you manage projects, and you'll be on the table sooner than later.
Okay. And I think one question that she was saying is, why hasn't strategic project management become the norm yet?
Again, I think it comes with PM maturity. I think it's really coming to a point wherein how mature is how are you guys tracking your projects? How are you reporting your projects? If it's just you saying done not done, that's not really, it's you task reporting, that's not project management. So I think you kind of have to drive the platform to a point wherein you're driving results rather than task closure.
Yeah. All right. I know we have a few more minutes left. There's still some questions, but maybe we can tackle those offline. But I do want to get recommendations from you, Martin. What's one book you recommend or love?
Oh, I like the Art of War,
Okay.
because then you can have a lot of PM insights in that one. But I do read a lot of I guess fiction. So like the Harry Potter series. I'm like a big Potterhead.
Yeah.
Uh, Not a lot. There's not a lot of time to read books. Not these days. I told you I have 2-year-old. I
Yeah.
have 2 dogs. I have full time work. I don't know how
Yeah.
to squeeze in an extra book in there,
Yeah.
other than the Bible. But
Yeah.
maybe
All good. You're a busy guy. What's one app you love or recommend?
it's funny because I use TikTok a lot, but I use TikTok in a way I train it to have algorithm on AI. So all my algorithm in TikTok is AI,
All
so that
right.
I know I keep up with it and
Yeah.
I make sure that I use the recommendations that they have. I try the prompts that they have. I try the systems that they use, and I
Yeah.
see how I can apply it at work. So I use it TikTok that way, not just to just doom scroll. So I make
Right.
sure I switch AI and then I like the stuff that I want to see, and then make sure
Mm,
that my algorithm is kind of like more
train
AI
that way.
project
Makes
management. Yeah.
sense. Podcast. One podcast you love or recommend.
Podcast. I'm a big basketball nerd, so when
Okay.
I walk the dogs, I'm all but it's nerdy basketball stuff. So not
Yeah.
really. Maybe some of the Tim Keller podcasts more for faith, but other than that, it's
Yeah.
basketball and faith.
Basketball. Are there any particular ones come to mind that you wanna recommend that you
Basketball,
love?
I like the Mismatch podcast. It's
Mismatch. Okay.
yeah, Mismatch, and also like Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons.
I'm a big Lakers fan, so Lakers
Yeah.
Nation podcast. So I juggle between those three because I think
Yeah.
they kind of come up with every day. So it's like whenever I'm walking the dogs twice a day for 40 minutes each, that's kind of what I
Yeah.
can. I put it at like 1.5 times speed so I can get through
Yeah.
most of them.
Listen faster.
Oh,
What's one pro- what's one productivity hack that actually works for you?
I connect my so I use Copilot to go through my day. It's like give me what's up for the day and
Hmm.
just give me emails I missed that are directed to me and what's in my calendar. Just help me prepare for the day. And then I use again. I use the Chat GPT. So for every project I have one chat for every project.
Mm,
So I know, okay, for that project, here's the chat. Where were we? So
right.
that's kind of how I kind of organize. So I don't have to keep separate notebooks. It's all in that same chat. So
For
yeah,
sure.
that's kind of what I do.
Nice. When you're stressed or overwhelmed, what helps you?
A good walk,
Okay.
or PlayStation 5. I like still like playing games. So I carve out like 30 minutes, 30
Yeah.
minutes to an hour to just go through my backlog of games. There's too much games, too little time. But yeah, walking or playing games.
Yes. Nice. So, thank you so much for making the time. For people that want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
I'm in LinkedIn. I think it's just search my name, Martin Aliman. But it's really that's kind of where most of my stuff are.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Martin. Really had a good time with you. All right. Take
Yeah,
care
if you
now.
have any questions for the people in the chat, just hit me up in LinkedIn.
All
I'm
right.
not as big as Mokhtar, but looking forward to connect.
Thank you so much for coming, Martin. Yeah. Take care
Thank
now.
you.
Bye, y'all.
Okay, bye.